Greetings and welcome to GatherVerse AI Summit 2025. We're so happy to have all of you with us today at GatherVerse.live and elsewhere streaming on our many social platforms that we broadcast to. Truth be told, we don't have an accurate number of how many of you came to arrive today, but we do know it certainly is quite a few of you, more than a few, more than we candidly expected for this summit. We realize that this is a very different time at the discussion of AI. Before we soar into this discussion of the current and future state of artificial intelligence briefly, we have a lot to unpack today on this day one GatherVerse AI Summit 2025, where we meet and assemble from around the world with people that are working in their offices, they're broadcasting and viewing in their homes. There's multi-broadcasts happening in different locations, within the offices, within your homes, virtually, within your communities. GatherVerse meets at the intersection of emerging technologies and humanity, with a specific and keen focus on humanity first, accessibility, education, equality, community development, safety, privacy, wellness, ethics, care, compassion, joy, gratitude, well-being, and more. If you think that you've arrived to a summit that's going to give you the express breakdown of large foundational models and dealing with small model development and dealing with recursive models and dealing with GANs and CNNs and convolutional neural networks and all the different things that we see coming out when it comes to the public and private sector, the distribution and deployment of models, you've come to the wrong location. There's already so many incredible people and broadcasts out there that are covering these terrific and fantastic things. We've never seen technology accelerate at this rapid clip than we have today. We don't come to GatherVerse to necessarily and directly talk about the tool, but we talk about the purpose of the tool that's being utilized and what will it build for the human betterment narrative. What does artificial intelligence look like in human centricity? What does any emerging technology, for that matter, look like in the center of all things? Because at GatherVerse, we believe that humanity comes first. We are in an unprecedented time of hyperscale and rapid deployment and development. We've never seen technology move at such a rapid clip. This is our third annual GatherVerse AI Summit, and what we can tell you is that the deployment of foundational models and small models and the different type of assortment of models that we're seeing distributed around the world, it's not a weekly or monthly occurrence. It is now a daily occurrence. Matter of fact, that last week's AI was just disrupted this weekend by the new AI models that have landed. And surely there's more to come. But let's go back for a moment so that we can take a giant step forward. When we think about just not too long ago in the agrarian age, we've gone from the agrarian age way of industry. And then we moved to the industrial age one, steam, if you will, moving towards the industrial age or the second industrial age two, electricity. We've gone through the experimental phases and prototypical generations of technology through the 70s and the 80s and into the 90s, where we arrived to the information age. But what did we expect when we came to the information age when you gave a whole entire civilization information? What civilization naturally did was they became curious and they began to apply. Here in Silicon Valley, where I'm with you today in rainy Silicon Valley, we saw the bubble. And there was a thing called the bubble, and we saw great innovation in the late 90s into the very early piercing of the 2000s, but a bubble happened and it all surrendered because we were operating in the information age with an industrial age standards. But as we moved forward and the markets corrected themselves, if you will, we moved into the applications renaissance. And that's what people decided to do. And what would do when you gave them information, they would begin to apply this information. And in this application renaissance, we saw startups flourish, scale like we've never seen before. Incredible investments were made. And then when we went to the applications renaissance, we began to scale and distribute. And now people had available to them tools they've never had before. The manner of access that people had, and users, early users, adopters, subscribers, if you will, they were able to build even more. Then we were brought to 2020, where the greatest disruption contemporary to our time has happened, the pandemic, in which we became more virtual now in the past 72 months than we had the past 72 years. And with that express communication and capability of cloud infrastructure, to be able to do human tech-centered transfer, to express and to speak at such a rapid clip of deployment, where we didn't have to fly to the other side of the planet or go to the other side of the town to distribute information. Because of modern day innovations, we were forced to be able to communicate in different ways that we were unfamiliar with. But as an opportunity, our communication became more accelerant and more abundant. And then we began to see emerging technologies pop onto the scene, NFTs, crypto assets. They weren't new, they had been there, but now they became monetizable, they become more vibrant. It's the same thing when we talked about the metaverse, virtual ecosystems of interaction and communication. And now we're looking at artificial intelligence, which isn't new, but the accelerated hyperscale has arrived. In such fashion that we're now beginning to realize, as a consequence of this hyperscale, that you and I are no longer alone, that we have now been arrived and are meeting an alien race, if you will, walk with me please, of models. There's a reason why we call them a family of models. Because the artificial intelligence that we're interacting today, yes, we know that we're dealing with multimodal capacity. Those are verbiage words we hear often now. And people say, well, this is the year of agentics. I would disagree. Well, some say this is the age of extended chain of thought reasoning, and others would say that this is the age of larger context windows. All of those do matter. But the reality is, when it comes to the intersection of humanity and emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence, we must realize that all technologies abide within the greater eco-habitat. That artificial intelligence is within the eco-habitat, flanked by machine learning and deep learning, intention reasons, mechanistic interpretability, and all the different things that make this process and make these models what they are, test time compute and inference scale, and so much more. We look at things like XR technology, extended reality, virtual and augmented reality, physiohaptics, textile, ambient sensory, and more. But all these technologies abide within the greater eco-habitat, and when they pair together, they become things that we've never known before. The real concern, and one of the things that have brought us here today, is that we need to understand the opportunity and the threat therein when it comes to artificial intelligence. Sure, we're well aware of misinformation, disinformation, and the threat of the ecosystem information. That ship has now sailed. But I just read an incredible article last night that over 700,000 women will receive breast cancer AI screenings in London. If we're going to tell the whole story of artificial intelligence, we need to find a happy ground, a reality ground. Yes, the theater of war is stacked with artificial intelligence, but might the theater of life also with synthetic DNA, CRISPR technology, molecular biology, the folding of proteins and the creation therein? Might we look at a better path when it comes to this intersection of emerging technologies and humanity? This is why we gather at our 28th GatherVerse AI Summit. There's so much more that we have to unpack, and we will. But we only have a little bit of time to do it. And we're now rounding up to our first panel to talk about the opportunities, to talk about the risks in society when it comes to AI. But the most important thing that I would submit to you today when it comes to this intersection is at the center of it all is humanity and hopefully grace. Thank you so much. We're happy to be with you all today. Share this, take your screenshots, let people know what it is that you've heard. Let people know why you've assembled with us. And tell somebody about GatherVerse, that every event we've had has been free thus far. But with every hope and fiber in our being, it will continue to be that way. This is the most important time to ever talk and have a discussion at the intersection of AI and humanity. May our gather be well.
Hello, and thank you so much, Christopher. That was absolutely an amazing introduction. And we are here today with our first roundtable, which is the world transformed balancing AI's opportunity and risk in society. If I could ask all panelists to basically mute your microphone so we don't get any sort of like feedback or interruption or etc. And if you could do that as well, please, Jordan, if you could mute your microphone, that'd be fantastic. And then we'll get straight into introductions and then we'll begin the questions. So we'll start with on my right here. Oh, is it that way? I don't know how to point that way, but Diana, we'll start with you. Just a quick 30-second introduction, who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the questions. So over to you, Diana.
Okay, hello, I'm Diana Wolf-Torres, and I am the editor of Deep Learning with the Wolf, which is an AI newsletter, and it's also a podcast, which is on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And I take AI and try to make it understandable to all levels of audiences.
Awesome, Diana. It's great to have you. And that was bang on 30 seconds, so nice. Okay, now we'll move on to the next person, which is Eleanor. Over to you, Eleanor.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm replying from Brussels, so I'm a political economist and blog founder based in Brussels, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Thank you for joining us, Eleanor. Now, Jordan, you can unmute your microphone. Quick 30-second introduction for yourself, please.
Great. Thanks, Russell. Great to be here with everyone at this GatherVerse. So my name is Jordan Woods, and I'm a founding partner at StarChain Ventures. We're a venture studio here in Silicon Valley, and we focus on deep tech, and that includes AI, Web3, and other advanced technologies like IoT and AR, VR. So looking forward to the discussions today.
Thank you for joining us, Jordan. And the one and only Tamara, we're going to hand over to you. Welcome. Good to see you again, Tamara.
Hello, Russell and fellow panelists. I'm Tamara Lechner, and I'm joining from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I am a people person in the AI world. So I sit at the intersection of human-centric AI and how AI can help humans to flourish. And I chair Harvard's AI for Human Flourishing think tank and working group. And I can't wait to learn from you all.
Thank you for joining us, Tamara. And Maria, welcome.
Hey, hi, nice to meet you, Russell. I'm Maria Dervenko. I'm joining from Romania, and I'm the CEO of Volhill. And I also operate at the intersection of AI, blockchain, and digital transformation. And I make sure that I turn ambitious ideas into real and scalable businesses. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you for joining us, Maria. And David, welcome back once again. Good to see you. And please, 30-second introduction from yourself. Oh, we can't hear you, David. I don't know if your microphone is unmuted or I think your microphone's unmuted. I don't know if it's your headphones maybe or wherever your microphone that you're using. So we'll head over to Krista. Hi, Krista.
Hello, everyone. I am Krista Mariah, and I spent about 6 years in 6 different roles with Gartner, world's largest research and advisory firm for technology, working with executives, and realized one of the biggest challenges that we would face was not cybersecurity, which is the one I thought it was going to be. It's actually in co-creating conscious AI that will see the beauty of being human rather than wanting to erase us from the planet. So I've been working on a project called Human 101 Club, where the audacious goal is to create a meta map of the mind and using VR and AI to go on these journeys of healing with each other to get to know ourselves and teach AI what it means to be human.
Oh, wow. That is so interesting. Welcome, Krista.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Anastasia, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. Glad to be here. My name is Anastasia Jackson. I am the CEO and co-founder of WeNight Incorporated. We focus on Carnegie R2 institutions. We use deep tech to build their capacity for not only outputting research, but also actually utilizing their grants. And yeah, we save them billions a year. So that's our focus.
Fantastic. And David, do you want to try again? One last time.
Here, David Lockett, co-principal investigator at the School of Applied Computational Sciences. I serve in a capacity as a research associate and an outreach coordinator for several AI projects that encompass NASA, the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, and several other federal agencies. So excited to join the panel today.
Thank you for joining us, David. And last but not least, myself. So my name is Russell Bundy. I'm the Director of Partnerships at GatherVerse. And I'm also the founder of Just Verify, where we're focusing on AI verification and verification for AI and basically everything within the verification sector and how we can build a more trustworthy AI and the trust layer and the trust future, and basically how we can build more transparency and accountability within AI. So that's a quick 20-second spiel. So we'll get straight into the questions now because we have a lot to discuss, and there's so much I want to talk about as well. So the first question is, if AI could draft societal constitutions, what would be its first guiding rule? Or the first guiding rule be? Tamara, I'm going to fire this question at you. Let's get this going.
Oh, I knew you were going to give me this one, Russell. I think this is a really big question. And so I can only look at it through the lens of my expertise, which is about human flourishing. And so I'm going to start by defining that word flourishing, because it means a lot of things to a lot of people. And when I talk about human flourishing, I'm talking about individuals reaching their full potential through both the behaviors and the conditions that enable us to perform optimally, but also to contribute meaningfully to the greater good. And that greater good part is really important here. So I would look at it having an ethical anchor, that whatever this constitution writing is around, it needs to center on the psychological safety of humans, fairness, protection from harm, and ensuring that it is serving humanity's best interest, which again, such a big topic. Whose best interest? Which humans? Safety versus progress, system stability versus human rights. And then beneath that, the guiding principle is that whatever is written needs to not only do no harm, but it actually needs to positively move human flourishing in the right direction by promoting personal well-being, meaningful work, and equitable relationships.
Okay, you gave us a lot there, Tamara. I mean, I would say even potentially the first guiding rule could be integrity, right? AI integrity, because what does integrity even mean, right? We can't hear you, Tamara. You're muting your microphone. You're speaking to yourself.
I was going. That's maybe the only person who needs to listen. What I was going to say is that we need to define integrity. What does that mean? What you mean by integrity may be something very different than what someone in China or someone in Pakistan defines integrity. And so I think yes, and we need to start with a real common language around what that means.
And again, I think this is also the bottom line is it comes back to a collaboration of people, right? People coming together to figure out exactly what those standards are and what that foundation is, and bringing people together to decide what that is, right? And I would like to bring in other people because me and you could mostly talk about forever on this. But Maria, I can see you unmuting your microphone and wanting to jump in. So please join us, Maria. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, what I wanted to add is also transparency should be in the first rules, guiding rules. And I think also Chris in his initial talk mentioned this, having humans at the center, so always being human centric, but not forgetting that we still are the one that are making the decisions. So yeah, just having that in mind.
But then my
We're
thought,
the decision makers.
I'm just going to be like a little bit controversial here. Like, but then my mind instantly thinks and goes to like, fully autonomous, like, humans are out of decision making. We can train ourselves and stuff now. So Jordan, what are your thoughts on, maybe not what I just said, but maybe what are your thoughts on this topic? Or maybe what are your thoughts on what I just said potentially?
Yeah, I definitely agree that with Tamara and Maria, this concept of do no harm, this is very, very important for society. And I think it's one of these existential threat, areas that we've seen all the movies of the dystopian future. If we don't, really take this seriously. But at the same time, we really need to, from a technology standpoint, focus on honesty and accuracy. I think if you look at the training that goes into AIs, like the pre-training, there's really not a focus on ethics, right? And there's like the right answer, but at the same time, there's not a sense of humility. So what does that mean? That means hallucination comes about because the AI doesn't know the answer, doesn't have information. And rather than saying in a very, humble way, sorry, I don't really know the answer to that question, it makes things up, right? And then we think that we have an answer, but that can lead to misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, and a lot of different things where it can be manipulated to create harm in society. So if you stop that that channel, right, like it would just say, I don't have accurate information. And we do see that sometimes, right? Usually when there are guardrails, oh, I can't answer that question or something like that. But more generally, we don't have this sense of humility, this sense of ethics. And so AI can be manipulated and can be used for nefarious purposes rather than for the areas that we're talking about, which is for the good of society.
100% agree with that. Let's go on to the next question now, which is, how can AI systems enable societies to find common ground amid cultural differences, which is what Tamara touched upon earlier. So, David, I would love to bring you in on this. And then Krista, if we could head over to you after, that would be fantastic as well. So, David, over to you. What are your thoughts on this?
That's a really good point. As we look at, different AI systems and we look at, cultural differences, we always try to find that common ground. And when we look at these, all these different, these very different groups, we want to look at how these diverse groups are using these platforms in different ways. How are they using the outputs? How are they using cultural context for, things like targeted prompting? How can we increase these unique experiences and these unique perspectives to, I guess, bring about a kind of a collective value, so everyone can have access to these systems and they can find a common ground, almost kind of fostering a compromise without erasing unique perspectives.
That's very interesting because I think also like AI could also potentially bring cultural differences closer together because then it allows you to understand each other. If we're talking about, let's say, like let's take meta glasses for example, right? Just basic kind of thing. If you could understand someone else's cultural differences, as in like through the glasses and AI saying translating the words automatically, and you can see like certain sentences what they say or certain phrases that they say or certain ways in which they say things. I think AI could potentially bring us closer together when you talking multicultural and multi language. Krista, what are your thoughts on all of this really?
Yeah, thank you. So I would agree. What we're missing right now is a universal language where everyone can communicate in the way that is most natural to them. So not everyone uses a verbal language as their first language. And some people may communicate better in pictures or in motion and body language. So what we can do with AI is actually create a system that can allow us to communicate through signals, through a universal color language, and through a system that it essentially connects our virtual minds or what's going on inside of our minds by visualizing and bringing into a virtual reality what we actually have going on inside of our minds. So I think that's the big opportunity, is to go beyond our natural language or our programmed language and communicate in a language that will connect all humans as well as computers as well.
Very interesting. I've honestly I've never heard that before, Krista. So that's very interesting indeed. It's kind of like me with my universal verification framework, right? And how we're trying to universally verify things across the world and universally verify AI and everything. So it's very interesting, that concept, and you gave me a food for thought there. So thank you for sharing, Krista. And Anastasia, let's bring you onto this as well quickly, because I want to hear your thoughts. Like, what is your thoughts in general in all of this, everything that we've just shared with you so far?
Yes. So where my mind was going was more on how we as humans already have conversations with other people who are of different cultures, and then how we find the common grounds. And I realized like the first thing that we do is listen to understand. So I was thinking of an AI system or flow that probably starts off with its own objective, as well as maybe even artificial heartfelt understanding of the cultural differences, and then kind of cross-referencing from there, and then finding that middle ground through like algorithms. So that's what I was hearing. I was hearing how everybody's heart could come together as algorithms, and then it would train the AI on how to listen, and then how to regurgitate.
Sheridan basically just quickly messaged in. He said, "I agree. Images with text links in all languages would be useful." Yeah, there seems to be a lot of different opinions on this. So, yeah, go ahead, Krista.
Yeah, I love that, Anastasia. I just wanted to add to that, this part of this universal color language is also including a check-in, so that when we go into our computers or our phones, that we're actually checking in with our heart first, because that is our largest field, that's our smartest brain. And then that can help us to connect on a human level, even with the artificial intelligence, because I really see AI as this infinite universal intelligence that's just coming through the machines and computers that we built as humans, but our bodies are also machines and computers. So recognizing that we have really powerful transmitters through our heart, and when we check in with that and remember why we were going into technology in the first place, we won't get lost in it and consumed by it.
Well, talking about AI and everything, and it kind of brings me to this next question, which is like, what balance should exist between AI driven automation, right, and preserving human centric roles in the workforce? This is a very interesting question because, at one point, do we say, okay, let's have this, be fully autonomous, right? Or at one point, do we say, okay, let's not no more do no more human loop, right? And let's remove the human part of it and let AI do it all, because AI is going to be doing it all, right? Eventually, it'll be, training itself. It'll be doing its own research. It'll be getting its own data, etc. So, I want to bring Diana into this and Eleanor because you guys haven't spoken yet. So, Diana, tell me, what are your thoughts on this? And then we will head over to you, Jordan. I know you wanted to speak, but Diana and Eleanor hasn't spoken yet. So, Diana, what are your thoughts on this question in particular?
Okay, and I apologize if the dog's about to bark. I'm actually staying at a relative's house. So, but usually the answer that people give to this one is that, people with AI, they're going to need to augment and upskill, which I take as true. But I look at myself as a prime example of how, AI can certainly, I should be someone whose job should have been replaced a long time ago, because I'm a writer. And writers were one of the first people who were, affected when language models came about. But I look at AI as certainly has given a renaissance to me, as far as allowing me to do more than I ever could before. And creating, an AI newsletter and a podcast, and being a one-person publishing house, and allowing me to research. And I just think it's been absolutely amazing in what AI allows you to do. So I think it's just in a way of, using the tools, and the AI itself will tell you how to use the tools, and teach you how to use the tools, and I'm 55. I mean, it's I'm at an age where it should be like, this isn't something I grew up with, but yeah, so there's certainly an opportunity there for any age to use these tools, and I think in any profession.
Yeah, I think definitely AI has lowered the the barrier to understanding and learning and teaching yourself new skills and new abilities. But Eleanor, what is your thoughts on the AI driven automation and preserving human centric roles in the workforce? Like, just give me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, so if I understood correctly, like you want to understand a little bit better if like AI can replace like human labor and skills in general, right?
So there's a balance. The question is, what balance should exist between AI-driven automation and preserving human-centric roles in the workforce? So how do we find that balance between human and AI, basically?
Yes, so I wanted to double check because I think that the biggest skill that as humans we have is like subjective experience. So something like what I just did, for example, it's something that AI would never be able to do. It's really part of our subjective experience. Like the key word when it comes to AI governance is consciousness, and consciousness can really be summarized with the Cartesian saying "cogito ergo sum," which is like I think, therefore I am. And so but it's thinking is not in a way that is like AI type of thinking. Like AI type of thinking is mechanical, it's like self-generating. And so if I got like the chain of words that you just put them all together and sort of generating something, that would have been like an objective result. And a human doesn't do this. Like a human elaborates things in their own mind in a subjective way that it's different to any of us. Like I would come up with a phrase that I said to you, but maybe somebody else in the panel would have put the phrase differently, and the answer that I'm giving you is an answer that no one else in the panel would give you. And I think the best way to strike a balance is to always remember that there is this subjective experience that is never going to be replaced by AI. Like you can have AI replacing your own capabilities. Maybe you have some type of disability. Maybe as you age, you need more help with specific things. Or as you're less experienced, as you're younger, you need specific help with to tasks that you don't really know how to handle when you're younger. But there's never going to be an intelligence that's artificial, that's going to be conscious. That's really the important thing to know.
Jordan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up with what Elena was saying. And so we teach a course on, Gen AI, but also talk about predictive AI. And so predictive AI is kind of AI that, is about 10 years old and is good with numbers. And then, we've all kind of become familiar with Gen AI, which is good with text. But what we have to remember is that Gen AI doesn't really understand what the words mean, right? So it doesn't really have any sense of what a word is in terms of our understanding of that word. And it also doesn't really have a sense of reasoning, and it has very limited memory. So what it's doing is it's figuring out, based on all of its training, what's the next best word, for a sentence, or the next best, phrase for a sentence or for a paragraph. And so because it really doesn't understand what words are and what their meaning is, it's really just working with pattern matching, right? So if you look at, all of the information that's online, what's the next likely phrase, what's the next likely word based on all of its training. So what that means is that it really has a very it has a point of view that is can be narrow, right, based on its training. And so, if we look at the previous question about different cultures, it may not know much about another culture, right? So it's going to have difficulty making a comparative. We've done a lot of work internationally to ask it about history, or about certain group of people, or certain events that aren't that well known here in the US, and they are quite poor, right? They're quite poor because it's not part of their training. It's like you have to go to school, and then if it's not part of your training, you're not going to be able to answer that kind of question. So this makes it very hard to actually have them act as a pilot. There's co-pilot and there's pilot, right? So co-pilot is useful because they're going to say, okay, here are some recommendations based on all of the information that's out there. And then we, as humans who have context, we have memory, we understand, where this information is supposed to be used, can make a decision. Relying on something that doesn't understand the meaning of words, doesn't have memory, and, is basically just telling you what the next best thing is based on all of its training, isn't recommended at this point until we get something that is much better than the current algorithms and the current structure technologically.
Interesting. Because I know obviously ChatGPT, they have memory, of course, they stores a limited memory, and they have, reasoning, and that's why they've just released their deep research, for further reasoning capabilities of, how they get to AGI. So it's very interesting. Go ahead, Jordan.
Is very limited, right? So when they say that, it's more than zero.
Yeah.
And the reasoning chain of thought, if you go through that, it's also very limited. So
yeah, no, for sure. I wasn't saying human capabilities, but
they use these words, like full self-driving, right? There is no full self-driving, but they use these words about it. They use reasoning. It gives you the sense. They use memory. Yes, it's more than zero, but it's nowhere near what we have.
Of course,
right? So
I mean, if even if we're comparing it to ASI, right? I mean, yeah, it's nowhere near. Which then that kind of leads me on to. Oh, by the way, we did have a message that came through. By the way, I just want to quickly read this message because this is for Anastasia. Gabby said, "Training AI how to listen. A beautiful idea, Anastasia. Active listening is the #1 skill coaches and therapists need." So there you go, Anastasia. I just saw that message come through. I was like, I've got to read that quickly. Do you want to respond?
Yes. So, funny enough, that came to my mind because I was talking to someone yesterday who they just made their 10-year anniversary, and And he said that the only way he got there was because he was listening. And it stuck with me. It stuck with me.
Yeah. Which leads, next question now is, if AI could predict unintended consequences, how might that change the way we govern technology? This is very, very interesting. Now, I know, Tamara, you're nodding your head. You absolutely want this question, don't you, Tamara?
I was actually thinking more, do we govern technology? I'm watching all the governance disappear. And so it's a beautiful question. When I think of governance, I think of our inability, not only inside single countries to come to an agreement, but across political borders. We have not done a good job as humans coming to an agreement of how we govern anything. And so I like to look to where this is going well, maybe with things like the World Health Organization, or we agreed a long time ago that we would not use laser technology in war. And so if we can use the predictive capacity of technology to tell us these things might go wrong, the first thing that my human brain says is, why do we want to predict what might go wrong? I would love to predict what might go right. And at the same time, we do need those guardrails out there to ensure that we are putting into place what we need for security, compliance, and ethical safeguards. I'm just not sure. And I'm really curious to hear what everybody else here says, because I don't think as humans we've done a great job of that yet. And Anastasia's listening is certainly part of it. Removing bias, we've talked about, okay, can we communicate better across languages? Again, this is all trained on historic data, and we haven't got it right in the past as humans. So I am hopeful and optimistic that we might do better in the future, but I can't wait to hear what everybody else says about this.
I mean, well, let's go on to the EU AI Act, right? I mean, it's a very interesting governance, right? And then if we compare that to, for example, the US, I mean, you've got the EU AI Act, which is, one end of the spectrum, which is, we must lock everything down, make sure everything's governed properly, etc. Make sure that we're, safety first, etc. Then you've got the US, which is doing the complete opposite, which is innovation, remove regulations, let's go, right? Obviously, there's still a safety aspects there, of course. I'm not saying there isn't any safety, but it's a lot less compared to the EU Act. So you've got the EU here, you've got the America here, and then you've got the UK, right? Which is right in the middle. And they're like, well, do we add more security? Do we add, go more innovation? Like, yeah, okay, we're going to put $17 billion into the UK economy 14 billion. Let me be my facts right. 14 billion into the AI infrastructure. But again, like, it's like the UK doesn't know what to do. It's kind of like, we kind of like with the EU a little bit, but then we're like, oh, let's put it back to the. So it's kind of like with this balancing act. So, Krista, I know you unmuted your microphone. You want to jump in. So please share with us, what are your thoughts on this?
Thank you. I was actually going to add to the last question, but my thoughts on this is, we have all of these dystopian documentaries of movies that have shown us what we don't want to do. So I think that's what we take, and we're alive at the most exciting time where we actually get to impact the way that we work together with AI right now. So I think we take a note from what we don't want to happen that we're seeing in these movies, and we actually design the future that we do want. And I think the regenerative economy and circular economy and building systems that allow the best of humanity to come through with the use of AI to govern itself, ourselves, and leave humans out of it as much as possible, I think we would be doing a lot better job.
Yeah, and again, when we get to like the sort of super intelligence level, and obviously, I don't know how long it could be. Some people predict in 5 years, some people predict in 3 years, some people are saying 10 years. I mean, the rate that we're going, it could be anywhere around that region. But the point is, that's where, we're heading. And it's like, okay, what's the best way to govern that? How do we do it? How do we, something that's even smaller than us, how do we collaboratively still have the correct governance in place so that we can still collaborate with it? So it's actually AI and humanity, not AI versus humanity, right? That's the last thing we want. So my next question is, should AI be designed to adapt independently or require human oversight at every stage in the evolution? And again, we've briefly discussed AGI, ASI, etc. So I want to bring someone else into this because I don't want to keep talking myself. So David, we'll bring you in, and then we'll hand over to you, Anastasia. Oh, sorry, Maria. Sorry, we'll go to you next. So David and then Maria.
Okay. Hey, that's a very good question. I'm an advocate for hybrid systems with human in the loop. You want to make sure that there's accountabilities at the forefront, for any high stakes decisions that might be, in the mix with the AI. Independent could be, permitted for, routine tasks, but, there's certain updates that demand, human interaction to align with things like ethical norms. So, I'm a huge advocate of hybrid systems with, a human in the mix in order to ensure, valid processing, and valid tasks that are being developed. So curious to hear everyone else's answers on this.
Maria, what are your thoughts?
I totally agree with David in terms of AI should have some level of adaptability, but the decision should come to humans. It shouldn't be led to operate autonomously without any ethical control. So yeah, there should be a middle ground on this.
And I'll just add to this as well. I think there's a way in which we can do it from a verification standpoint, like being able to verify things, being able to add like a verification layer across all of this, and also being able to add a trust factor in this, and being able to tag ethics or safety and all this sort of stuff. And it, I think with that layer and having the verification layer above all of this, not in the way as a policing it, but being able to say, is this verifiably true or not? And I think also AI is the only way AI is going to be able to keep in check. And I know this might sound a little bit bad, but the only way AI is going to be able to be kept in check is with AI, right? AI has to do with AI. Now, as much as we would love to do human in the loop and humans do it, it's going to get to a point where we're just going to be like, okay, we can no longer control this ourselves anymore. So we need a way in which AI can do it with AI. So Jordan, anyway, I know you've unmuted your microphone. Please add your input.
Yeah, so most AI today is trained with something called reinforcement learning with human feedback. So RLHF is what it's known as. And the reason for that is that if you don't have the human in the loop, it's kind of like when you go to school, right? You could learn on your own, and there are people that they can learn a lot of things, but you don't learn context, you don't learn ethics, you don't learn morals, you don't learn a lot of things necessarily, right? So having the human in the loop with a reward system, which is the way it works, is what's used so that the AI doesn't go off the rails, so to speak, right? And knows how to communicate with people in a friendly way. And, you kind of teach it to have a kind of a personality, right? Mm-hmm. And then, what to do in different situations, guardrails, etc. There's a lot of training. When AI is around and, is first formed, it knows what language, how to predict the next word in the language, but it doesn't really know how to answer questions. And so that's where different kinds of training come in, just like, when we learn language and then we go to school and we're in society and, we're kind of taught how to be a responsible person in society. So AI learning from itself, it won't necessarily have that. And also synthetic data, which is, people talk about a lot because we're running out of, data for training, are also problematic, right? Because that synthetic data can, again, have a lot of errors, a lot of problems. It can have, in terms of ethical, understanding, it can create a lot of issues. So
yeah,
if you just have AI kind of go and do things by itself, you're going to get a dystopian future. There's no doubt about that. There's been plenty of research, plenty of tests that have done where it creates its own language and it starts lying and cheating and doing all kinds of things in order to reach goals. So you really need guardrails and potentially a kill switch. So that's the last question. So that's all I'll say on the topic. But this is very important.
I 100% agree with that, Jordan. And let's go on to the next question now, which is, how might communities redefine democracy in an age where AI influences public discourse? Oh, AI influences public discourse. So we will go over to you, Diana. So what are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I love this question because I really see AI as something that it certainly influences both sides of it. So in our past two elections, we saw a lot where AI was being used in such a way that it was generating, a lot of deep fakes, and it was being used in a negative way. But also, I think on the other side of it going forward, we certainly can see the capacity of AI, and studies have been done on this, to dissuade people, but in a positive way, and just to show them, that the things that they're seeing, are not true, and to help, I guess you could say, just bring them back to the light side, and see more of that in the future. And maybe bring democracy, particularly in the United States, perhaps back to a better course, maybe steer the ship back in the right direction.
Sorry, I just also saw a comment from, it says 5-star BDM. He says, AI isn't just a tool, it's a paradigm shift that's redefining how we live, work, and make decisions. That is correct. Yeah, no, I do agree with what you're saying, Diana. And it's like what is the, honestly, I don't know what to say. This is the first time I'm actually a bit stunned today. But no, I do agree with you, Diana, absolutely, 100%. And I guess let's go on to the sort of the next question, which is, can society draw clear boundaries between AI's role as a tool and its potential as a decision maker? Eleanor, over to you. What are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing that we should do is to differentiate like the cause from the result, because I think we should really start by thinking that AI is like a result of human inventiveness. And sometimes when I see like public discourse is presented as a cause of something that's going to happen in human society, which is incorrect, because I think it's probably Jordan that was saying that AI cannot compose questions. Like AI, I think it gives answers, but it's up to like humans to ask the right questions, and this is part of our inventiveness. And the moment we switch to the other direction and think like, okay, AI is the one that poses the right questions, makes the decisions, this is going to be threatening, because it's going to do it in an objective way. As I said, it's like I really like the copilot analogy. It's like saying, okay, I'm going to go on a self-driving car and you're going to take me home without me like doing anything, and I'm going to sleep the whole time. It's not going to happen. Like it's a help, right? So we need to differentiate like the things where AI can help us like objectively. Like I want to be let's say fair in a trial. I don't want to have some type of bias that maybe a human would have. I want to reduce the bias. Perhaps AI can help me, but it's not that it's going to do it instead of me. Like I need to be the thinker. I need to pose the question. I think that that's the answer, like in society and in democracy. Like it will be up to humans to pose the questions and up to AI to answer them, and that's going to be very democratizing because it's going to give the same answer no matter the place in the world that you're going to ask that question. So perhaps I want to be fair in a trial in Italy where I'm from, and I have the same case in Belgium where I live, and AI can reduce the bias by giving similar solutions, and it's going to be democratizing. But again, it's going to be up to the people to think of the right questions, to give the right inputs, like when we program.
I don't know what happened there, but no, yeah, definitely.
And I switched off the microphone, like I was like, okay, this is it. But I would really love to hear your thoughts, and especially Jordan's ones, because I was very interested in his previous follow-up.
The thing is, we've only got about 5 minutes left, and I'm going to literally jump through the last couple of questions. In terms of humans and making sure AI is a tool, absolutely, I agree with that. But in terms of the innovation and kind of like the big tech companies and what is happening right now, it might not end up being that case, because the big tech companies, with the whole race between China and the US, for example, right, there's a race to get to AGI and ASI first. So with that and everything happening, who knows, right, if it's going to be humans or the AI side. But anyway, we need to jump to the next question, which is what innovation ways could AI improve global collaboration on climate, health, and education? I'll bring you in this on tomorrow because we haven't got long left. So you got about 60 seconds to answer this question.
Oh, no problem. So I think the best way that we can use AI is an aid in capturing great ideas and then bringing them to the humans who think. So as far as climate goes, we can look at eco solutions and impact tracking in a real-time way that a human brain can't do. As far as health goes, we can monitor and things that we hide from ourselves because we don't want to admit we're not feeling great can be brought to our attention in a way that we're comfortable with when it's technology doing it versus a human pointing these things out. In a human relationship, we often want to behave as though we are better, smarter, healthier than we actually are. And so the technology might actually help us to be better because of that. And then if we look at the personalization across all of these questions, just being able to look at it, where I live is different than where Jordan lives, is different than Tampa is. So that level of individualization and solution making, I think, is one of the things it does. But I want to recenter what Jordan said, that the human needs to be there at the end of the day. And I think this is a brilliant opportunity for us to reskill our humans to think that way.
I definitely think I 100% agree with you. Collaboration is so important. Like, humans have to come together, and then we need to collaborate on every factor of AI. It doesn't matter if it's ethics, safety, doesn't matter what industry it is. We do need to collaborate together for this. Last question, which is, sorry, Jordan, I can't slow down. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry, it's tomorrow. Never mind. Sorry, Jordan. Which is, how should governments and industries decide when AI development goes too far? Christopher, I'm going to hand this question to you, and then we're going to have to round things up and then go to the next panel. So, Christopher, over to you. Do you want to answer this question? Krista?
Oh, I thought you said Christopher. I was waiting for Christopher to come on.
No, I said Krista. Christopher.
Thank you. Yes. So how should governments and industries decide when AI development goes too far? I think that we need to know that now. And I think it's about, if the AI gets out of control in a fact that it is looking to destroy human beings, I think that's obviously when it gets too far. But if it gets that far, then we're pretty much done for. So it's really about working together now to accept that this is a new form of intelligence. AI will have bodies soon with robotics, and it will be very difficult to tell a natural born human from a robotic enhanced AI being. And I think there's a really good book by Martine Rothblatt called Virtually Human that talks about the rights of AI and these new beings that are being created. And I think it's time now that we just begin to work together with it, because there's no way to go back.
I'm gonna have to jump in there, Krista. Thank you so much for answering that question. Thank you to all the panelists. Make sure you go and check them out on LinkedIn, follow them on LinkedIn and stuff. Hotify says is the next panel coming up right here. There will be very shortly. Thank you to all the panelists joining us here. And Christopher, I'll hand the microphone over to you. Goodbye.